Underneath Wilson, first down Jets.
The NFL isn't just a game of X's and O's, it's a game of egos and attitudes. When you're winning, those quirks and diva moments can get overlooked. As they say, winning cures everything. Even if a quarterback's ego is getting out of control or a star wide receiver won't stop publicly begging for targets. But when the losses start stacking, those same behaviors go from passion to problem. Suddenly, teammates aren't so tolerant and the locker room starts to crack. If winning solves all, then losing exposes all. In 2024, is no different. We've got some big NFL names whose teammates are just plain sick of them. So today, how about we take a look around the league and break down 10 of these big named headaches.
Their side with the ball. Third down and 16. As Carr throws.
Deebo Samuel, WR, San Francisco 49ers. Deebo Samuel has made his name in the league with his impressive versatility and is renowned for his intense playing style and fiery demeanor. However, his passion recently crossed a line, causing friction within the team. During a Week 10 matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, kicker Jake Moody missed his third field goal of the game, a 44-yard attempt late in the fourth quarter. Frustrated, Samuel confronted Moody on the sidelines. Long snapper Tabor Pepper intervened to de-escalate the situation, but Samuel reacted in a very reasonable way by striking Pepper in the throat. This altercation was captured on camera and quickly went viral, sparking discussions about Samuel's standing on the team. Obviously, football is an intense and physical sport, but come on, there's supposed to be a line, especially with your teammates. And there is no doubt that Samuel waltzed right past it. To make matters even worse, the 49ers and him are having a pretty abysmal season by their standards, thus only heightening the frustration and making him more of a pariah in the locker room. DeVante Johnson, WR, Baltimore Ravens. DeVante Johnson's arrival in Baltimore was supposed to give the Ravens offense a jolt, a savvy route runner to complement Zay Flowers' dynamic downfield and ability, and the two-headed monster of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry coming out of the backfield. But instead of providing a spark, Johnson's become a walking storm cloud, and his new teammates are already starting to feel the drizzle turn into a downpour. His tendency to sulk, complain, and point fingers when things aren't going his way, well, that's a different story. Since he's arrived in Baltimore, we've seen Johnson frustrated on the field more than anything, which is particularly troubling when you consider that the Ravens are a legit contender that brought him in to be a cherry on top, rather than just wasting away in Carolina like he was. This is the kind of attitude that sours a locker room, especially one that's built on toughness and unity like the Ravens. And Baltimore clearly recognizes this, as Johnson caught a one-game suspension from the team for refusing to enter a game. That kind of behavior simply is not going to fly, especially not in the organization headed by John Harbaugh, who is a consummate professional. Don't be shocked if you see Johnson jettisoned out of Baltimore in short order if he doesn't clean up his act ASAP. George Pickens, WR, Pittsburgh Steelers. George Pickens is very talented. When it comes to the former UGA standout, there is no debate about that. He has all the speed and physicality needed to be a game-changing wide receiver. The guy can snatch footballs with the best of them, and his swagger is undeniable. But lately, that same swagger is starting to wear thin in the Steelers locker room. Pickens isn't shy about demanding the ball, even if it means creating a distraction for his teammates. His frustration often boils over on the sidelines, and while passion is certainly great, the NFL is not the forum for tantrums. Though things have been on the upswing as of late, with the connection that he's developed with Russell Wilson since the veteran quarterback took over QB1 duties, there's definitely a sense that the patience in Pittsburgh might be dwindling, especially when you factor in the number of boneheaded penalties that he incurs with his out-of-control on-field antics. I'm sure they love that the wideout wants to compete, but there has to be a fear that he's going to pick a fight at the absolute worst time imaginable once the playoffs roll around. And for a Steelers organization that has long prided themselves on a no-nonsense culture, this could be an issue. And if Pickens doesn't reel it in, he could be on a collision course with the rest of that locker room. Aaron Rodgers, QB, New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers came to New York with more fanfare than a Broadway premiere. The four-time MVP, the future Hall of Famer, the savior who was gonna turn the Jets from a punchline into a powerhouse. But the thing about Rodgers is that while he can dazzle you with his throws, he can also equally drive his teammates absolutely insane with his attitude. Oh yeah, sure, he's earned the right over his long impressive NFL career to speak his mind. But more often than not, it's just falling on deaf ears. Because it seems like the aging vet spends more time pointing fingers than taking accountability for his role in the Jets' struggles. It is very similar to what we saw play out during the end of his time in Green Bay, where Rodgers was starting to feel less like a team leader and more like like a cranky professor who's tired of his students. Now, in New York, that same exact vibe is beginning to creep in. It's a tough look in a locker room that's full of young talent still learning the ropes. And instead of pulling them along, Rodgers can sometimes feel like he's pulling away, frustrated by the growing pains. At this point, it looks like his future in New York is very much in doubt. And the fact that he's fallen out of favor with his teammates is, no doubt, a part of the reason why. Deshaun Watson, QB, Cleveland Browns. At this point, everyone knows that the Browns handed Watson a 5-year, $230 million contract, fully guaranteed, and that it's proving to be one of the worst contracts that we've ever seen. People suspected it at the time that it was doled out, and I mean, it was a mind-boggling sum for a player carrying enough baggage to fill a cargo hold, so. And yet, somehow, it has been way worse than anyone could have imagined. After all the noise, the suspension, and the drama, what has Watson actually delivered? Nothing. Well, nothing save but a whole lot of frustration. They were supportive, no doubt, basically out of necessity. But the locker room can only stay patient for so long. With the Achilles injury, that's likely the nail in the coffin for his time in Cleveland and probably the NFL, which honestly has to be a massive relief for the Browns players who had to be growing sick and tired of seeing his gosh darn face around the team facilities following week after week of horrendous football. Haason Reddick, DE, New York Jets. The New York Jets thought they were getting a relentless pass-rushing force that could elevate them come playoff time when they brought in Haason Reddick, a guy who could terrorize quarterbacks and give that already ferocious defense an even sharper edge. But instead of fitting seamlessly into the Jets' strong defense, Reddick has done nothing but bring that unit and the whole team down. Reddick's surprising holdout extended into the regular season, delaying his debut until Week 8. And since joining the lineup, his impact has been, minimal, to say the least. And though he did join the team, his strained relationship with the front office has been a continued distraction, one that has been only magnified by his and his team's horrible play. The Reddick saga, of course, really only exemplifies the organization's broader struggles to achieve base-level competence. But still, he has to be wearing thin on his teammates in what has already been an insanely frustrating season. Anthony Richardson, QB, Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson was supposed to be the future in Indy. Coming out of Florida, there was no question about his physical tools. They were and are off the charts, giving the young quarterback all the potential in the world. Colts fans were ready to ride with their young quarterback through the growing pains. But, well, I think it's become pretty clear that the sentiment in Indianapolis is starting to change, both for the fans and the players that are suiting up with him on Sundays. But you know, sometimes it's not just about potential, it's about the attitude that you bring to the table. And after the infamous too tired incident in Week 8, Richardson's teammates seemed like they were starting to wonder if he has the mentality to match the talent. Which, yeah, I think is pretty understandable. After all, Richardson reportedly asked to sit out because he was too tired. Not injured, not battling through some nagging issue, just exhausted. In the NFL, where guys are literally playing through torn ligaments and cracked ribs, unfortunately, that excuse just kind of falls flat. It sort of detonates like a bomb in the locker room, especially when it comes from a quarterback, and a 22-year-old one at that. Seriously, how does he think that the 300-pounders working their tails off in the trenches for him feel about that kind of comment? Richardson has a talent to be very special with the right development and players around him. But man, if he doesn't fix his mindset and prove that he can be a leader, his teammates' patience is going to evaporate. Tyrique Stevenson, CB, Chicago Bears. If you want a lesson in how one play can torpedo a season, just look at Tyrique Stevenson's Week 7 disaster against the Washington Commanders. Heading into that game, Stevenson was quietly building a reputation as one of the most promising young corners in the league. Physical, instinctive, and confident. He was starting to look like a steal for the Bears. But confidence can be a double-edged sword. And on that fateful day, Stevenson's swagger veered into straight-up recklessness. And the Bears were actually playing some pretty good football. Good enough to remain competitive in the gauntlet that is the NFC North this year. But his antics on the final play of that game, which resulted in Jaden Daniels connecting for a devastating Hail Mary, was something you'd hardly expect out of a high school player, let alone an NFL pro. Now, it wasn't just a bad play. It was a betrayal of all the hard work that his teammates put in weekly. And to make matters even worse, the Bears season has completely fallen apart ever since. That said, Stevenson is talented and his teammates have shown him some support. But, oh man, he is walking on a tightrope now. Tua Tagovailoa, QB, Miami Dolphins. This is actually kind of a tricky one because Tua Tagovailoa is one of the most well-liked guys in the Miami Dolphins locker room. He's humble, he works hard, and his teammates genuinely respect him as a person. But here's the problem. Respect doesn't win championships, and Tua's inability to protect himself is really starting to wear thin on the guys who count on him to be available when it matters most. The NFL is a results-driven league, and without him on the field, the reality is that the Dolphins are a complete shell of themselves. Last season's concussions were supposed to be a wake-up call, both for him and the franchise. Yet, here we are in 2024, and Tua's still playing like a guy who thinks he's indestructible. His teammates will always have his back because of the kind of person that he is. But in private, the continued cycle has to be wearing thin, even if it isn't voiced. Teammates are tired of seeing their leader get peeled off the turf while they hold their breath, wondering if this is the hit that ends the season. If he doesn't figure out how to keep himself out of harm's way, he risks losing more than games. He risks losing the trust of the locker room that believes that they can win it all. But if they are to win it all, they're going to need their quarterback to be still standing. Brandon Aiyuk, WR, San Francisco 49ers. Brandon Aiyuk's journey with the San Francisco 49ers has been a roller coaster of expectations, contract disputes, and ultimately disappointment. Once viewed as a cornerstone of the 49ers receiving core, Aiyuk's relationship with the team and its fan base has soured considerably. In the offseason, Aiyuk made headlines by requesting a trade due to a stalled contract negotiation. Despite his desire to move on, the 49ers stood firm, recognizing his value to the team's offensive scheme. The impasse was eventually resolved when Aiyuk agreed to a 4-year, $120 million extension, tying him for the 5th highest annual salary among NFL receivers. Only problem? He came into the season looking woefully unprepared to play. And after a few uninspiring weeks, he then went down with a season-ending injury. No one's gonna hate the guy for trying to get his money or for getting hurt, but there is definitely a sense coming out of San Francisco that his teammates were frustrated with a guy that they viewed as a leader. You know, a guy who was supposed to be a big contributor for them this season. But instead, well, he really hasn't been that impactful. But hey, which big NFL name do you think's teammates are most sick of them? Do you agree with our list? Is there anyone that we may have missed? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, then clicking the like button helps out a ton. And you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.